Welcome everybody to our Substack Live. This is part of our Meidas meetup series that we do here. I know a lot of you have joined these episodes in the past where we speak to some of the top experts out there in politics and law. And today I am so excited about our guest. We have Adam Clasfeld on the show. Many of you know his incredible work. He's a renowned legal reporter, the co-founder of the brand new All Rise News, a Substack publication launched just weeks ago. He is one of the single best legal reporters in the world. It is great to have him here on the platform. All Rise News is dedicated to fearless journalism, delivering incisive coverage of the law, your rights, and the tools you need to drive change in this crazy Trump era. So I want to make sure that everybody who follows us here on the Meidas Plus Substack goes over and follows the All Rise News Substack. You're gonna want to get all that news and analysis every day from Adam, I assure you. Make sure you subscribe. There's some massive news breaking just now that Adam is leading the way on, especially in regards to Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act and a bunch of other topics. So at this point, I'll turn it over to our legal experts here. Ben, Adam, great to have you guys here as always.
Great to be here, Brett. Adam, great to have you. Let me just give Adam a little bit of an addendum also to what Brett said. As a law professor, as someone who litigated for 14 years, I'm very discerning in the legal news that I read and that I follow. And it is very rare when someone can kind of accurately describe what's happening, but also understand the courtroom dynamics and the players and the judge and the lawyers and the clients and what actually unfolds in a courtroom. And to do it, you have to be really smart. There's also a lot of smart people who write out there, but it also blends intelligence with passion, and it's very obvious for me which people like really love being in court and love really like writing about it and love the footnotes and love the notices and love the dates and deadlines and likes to think about why they're set like that. So before I even got to know Adam as a friend and on a personal level, I knew him from someone who I just viewed as, wow, this is someone who gets it and someone who can communicate in a way that's very effective and important in 2025, although I knew Adam's writing back 4 or 5 years ago. And, you coming to Substack, I think it was a great move. Going independent, a great move. And, that's what I respect a lot about your work. So we're going to dig into these cases. But before we do that, why don't you just tell people a little bit about your background and your work, Adam, so they can know you a little bit better.
Thank you so much, Ben, for that wonderful introduction. And the respect is absolutely mutual. You guys are doing great work. I've been a legal journalist for about 2 decades. I've covered state courts, federal courts, military courts, covered the Guantanamo Bay military commissions with the 9/11 accused. I covered every single day of Donald Trump's criminal trial in Manhattan and appeared every single night to talk about it on The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. I've been covering the courts, and I care about the footnotes, as Ben says. They're often where you find some of the really incredible juice, the kind of stuff where judges have stuff on their mind that they can't fit anywhere else in a ruling, but that needs to be said. I'll give you an example. It's not only judges. When Robert Mueller gave his big report and Trump was claiming complete and total exoneration, there was a little footnote buried in the Mueller report saying that if he were impeached and removed, he could be criminally prosecuted. So yes, the footnotes matter. It's important, and the really reading and understanding this stuff with enthusiasm is the juice of news gathering and can really make an impact. So thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Ben.
And part of what you're able to do is because you follow the deadlines very closely, you kind of also anticipate when there's going to be a big ruling just based on the habits of the judges. And we got a very big ruling today, though, from Judge Hellerstein's court regarding the Alien Enemies Act. The second big, there's been a lot of Alien Enemies Act ruling, but the second judge to directly address the lawfulness or the lack of lawfulness of the Alien Enemies Act. Can you talk about what went down today in Judge Hellerstein's court, where that court is, and the importance of this ruling?
Yes, absolutely. So that court is about, I'd say, 10 or so blocks from where I live. It's the Southern District of New York. And what you said about following the deadlines, we knew something like this was going to happen today. As a matter of fact, at All Rise News, we published something on Rising this week. Expect a big ruling in the Alien Enemies Act litigation today because Judge Hellerstein issued a TRO. Some of the folks watching right now might remember this is the restraining order where the judge, right before issuing it, the judge compared what the Trump administration was doing to an inquisition like in medieval times. Well, that restraining order was about to expire. And so in our coverage of this, we noted, hey, look out for a ruling before this TRO expired. And he issued it. And boy, is it a big one. If I can just take a moment to read you the opening paragraph of this. It's very rare that you see a judge kind of really put things in the sweep of history, but it seems like we're getting these sweep of history rulings every day because judges understand what's at stake. It begins, this nation was founded on the self-evident truths that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our Constitution embodies these truths in a limited government of enumerated powers and its system of checks and balances, separating the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, and in its guarantee that neither citizen nor alien be, quote, deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. He went on to say later in the ruling that not only are these immigrants being deprived of due process, they're being sent, in his words, into a prison to remain, quote, indefinitely in a notoriously evil jail. Judge Alvin Hellerstein.
And I love that you read the words because that's what it says, and I know that, a lot of people want to try to manipulate what it says, and it couldn't be clearer. Now, this is a big deal though, right? Because a lot of the other cases so far hadn't really got to the issue of the very essence of invoking the Alien Enemies Act. Is that okay? These other cases addressed an issue. Assume the Alien Enemies Act was properly invoked. Do you still need to do some sort of process at a bare minimum, habeas corpus petitions, even if it was properly invoked? But now we have two rulings, right? One from Judge Rodriguez, Fernando Rodriguez, a Trump appointee in the Southern District of Texas. Now you have Judge Hellerstein in the Southern District of New York addressing the more fundamental issue. You didn't even have the ability to invoke Alien Enemies Act in the first place. Judge Judge Rodriguez in the Southern District of Texas said, look, Tren de Aragua may be bad, but it's not an invasion of a country against us, right? Like, it's not a war,
Right.
and we have processes for that. So what's going to happen next? Is this going to get appealed? What's going to happen?
It seems inevitable. Every time there's a major ruling like this, not without exception, but usually there'll be appeals. And there's a big question of which goes first. Is it the conservative Fifth Circuit or is it the Second Circuit Court of Appeals? This litigation continues. There's already a scheduled hearing later in the month. And there is as you noted, Ben, two resounding rulings pointing out that the proclamation is unlawful. From the Texas judge, Judge Rodriguez, and now Judge Hellerstein pointing out there's no declared war, there's no invasion, there's no predatory incursion. Those are what you need to invoke the Alien Enemies Act, which has been invoked 3 times in U.S. history: World War I, World War II, and the War of 1812. So here are 2 judges saying this doesn't rank, and a 3rd judge is likely on the way. In Colorado, a judge already made preliminary findings that the AEA, for short, doesn't apply. And as you know, Ben, it's the entire legal architecture that's supporting this idea that you can somehow end run due process for immigrants. Judges are looking at this. They're not buying it. We're seeing breaking news reports that the intelligence community demolished The Trump administration's claim that Tren de Aragua works hand in glove with the Venezuelan government. The IC doesn't buy it. The intelligence community, the spy agencies said that's not true. And that was the basis. That's the entire legal rationale and architecture of it. And it's getting a new hit against it seemingly every day.
We saw that report. Talk about how that may impact these cases as well. Now that there is that finding, does that come in through discovery? Remind our viewers what the finding is. Is that needed in discovery, or can a judge on their own just basically say, "I'm a judge. What the hell is this?" Or is that being cited now in these briefs?
So, in two cases, even before the release of this publication of this report, judges found, even as a matter of law, this isn't a predatory incursion. This isn't an invasion. Let's put it this way: it doesn't help the Trump administration's position because you have the intelligence community saying what they're saying isn't true, and it's the entire basis. It cuts off their argument at the knees because the entire basis of the argument is that Tren de Aragua is some sort of quasi-state actor, that they're somehow connected or propped up to Maduro. And the people from the spy agencies, the people whose jobs it is to ferret out these secret connections between these gangs and these state entities, saying nothing doing over there. So it's cutting off the Trump administration's argument right at the knees. And so even before that happened, they were losing. And now that's more fuel to the fire. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this pops up on court records, on appellate records. It weakened their position dramatically.
So the focus for a long time, for the past several weeks, has been on the Abrego Garcia case. But what you and others were saying is it's about a bigger issue than Abrego Garcia. Yes, you can go through the facts on Abrego. No criminal history. The Trump administration in 2019 gave him the work permit. He checked in with ICE every year. He's got an American wife. He's got 3 American kids. You can talk about the dubious proposition of the officer who used double hearsay informant back in 2019. We know there's a withholding order that says Abrego Garcia couldn't be sent to El Salvador. A lot of attention there. But now, with these other orders and rulings, we're seeing other judges identify the other Abrego Garcias out there, right? And saying, facilitate the return of this person, facilitate the return of this person. Are we now going to see the broader sweep with all of these Alien Enemies Act cases? If it was improperly invoked, doesn't it logically follow that all of these individuals who are now rotting in a concentration camp in El Salvador were improperly sent? And so wouldn't it then follow the remedy is return them? So the Abrego Garcia battle is really a proxy of the Trump's position about this whole disaster of all of the individuals who were sent there, 85% who have no criminal history, according to 60 Minutes.
Right, absolutely. I mean, it definitely builds up pressure for that. Unfortunately, these rulings are pretty limited in their scope. You have the Southern District of New York, the Southern District of Texas, but the pressure is building. And now we have two findings that this whole thing, this entire architecture is illegal. We're having pressure from more than 40 different news organizations, 14 different news organizations today have petitioned the court in Maryland for more information to unseal records. There are more than 200 people rotting in this evil jail, in the words of this federal judge. We know very little about them except what trickles out in a couple of reports. Politico reported yesterday that someone just like Kilmar Abrego Garcia had a court order to not deport him, to not whisk him out of the country, let alone outside of the due process in some quasi rendition type of thing. And even despite that court order, like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he was taken out of the country. So that's coming out yesterday with this push for transparency, with petitioning the court to get more information. The Trump administration's attempt to keep this quiet, to keep us from not knowing the 200 plus people who are rotting in this jail, that it weakens every day. And there's another chip in the armor every day. And what happened today were very powerful developments in that effort.
Everybody should remember that the Abrego Garcia case hasn't really gone anywhere. They're in expedited discovery. There was for some unknown reason, there was a delay for a week. It was under seal, so we don't know why. We could speculate as observers of the court. Were the Trump lawyers representing that there may have been some sort of breakthrough or some things they were trying to do? Because that Maryland District Court judge, Judge Zinnes, I'm not sure why she would delay the proceedings for any reason other than there was progress being made, but who knows? Then Trump came out with all of those statements, taking 10 steps backwards, already going backwards. And then, so that's my read of it. I don't know if you have a different, we can only speculate. I don't think anybody truly knows what happened unless you have any more insight than I do, but that's heading towards expedited discovery. And, all those people who signed declarations, I mean, they're now on the chopping blocks, I think, for an eventual criminal contempt, finding if they were responsible for this situation happening, the way Boasberg made that finding, which then got temporarily stayed and delayed by the DC Circuit Court of Appeals on an administrative basis. But what do you make of all that?
Yeah, well, Boasberg has a hearing tomorrow, so we'll
You see, the guy
definitely
knows
be on
everything.
the
I told you.
lookout for all of that. I mean, Boasberg is going to hold their feet to the fire, I'm sure. On what's happening in Maryland, Judge Zinis gave a deadline for 4 Trump administration officials who are currently having to testify about the Supreme Court's order that they facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That deadline is Friday. So it could be that as we speak, somewhere in a federal courthouse in Maryland, a Trump administration official is getting grilled. We don't know the exact timing of it, but the clock is ticking and they have until Friday to do it. So all of this is coming to a head right now. This week is a big week in the movement to get justice for in all of these cases. So it's coming to a head.
You see, everybody, if you know this about the Midas Touch Network, I don't like fluff. I like dates and deadlines and reading the opinions, and that's what I'm in the consumption of news market for. And Adam really makes it very, very clear. Adam, what other dates and deadlines this week are you paying close attention to, or maybe in the next 10 days?
Right. Well, right now I'm definitely paying attention to what happens at the end of the deadline for the depositions, because there's also the option to call other Trump administration officials in the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. Will there be further depositions? There's a big case going to the DC Circuit on Friday, and it's a case of Kathy Harris, the Merit Systems Protection Board, one of these really important positions to make sure that essentially the government's functioning on merit. The chair of the board has been yanked by Trump and was challenging that as illegal. Her case goes to the DC Circuit on Friday. There's a case against Russ Vogt about the protection of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's also on Friday before the DC Circuit. We list all of these things in a kind of regular column that runs on Sundays called Rising This Week on All Rise News. This week, in covering this, Ben, so we focus on the courts, but we also focus on civic engagement and protest. There's a doozy of a protest happening tomorrow that is in New York City. It's called the MAGA Billionaire Blockade, and it's going to billionaire Paul Singer at the Manhattan Institute, who's being protested. Became a major Trump donor. This is on the heels of other May Day protests, visiting James Murdoch, at Tesla board member, and Elon Musk and other people. So part of what I'm focusing on these days, I've always done the legal beat, and now in the Trump era, I think we're all feeling we need to step things up and focus not only on what's happening in the courts, but the actionable information we report. What can you do about it? So we focus on things like notice and comment. We're about 1 week away from a rule on the Federal Register. There's a story on our site right now where you may be aware that Trump purged every single Biden appointee from the Board of Immigration Appeals. And so all of these immigration judges gone. There's a rule on the Federal Register right now. Anyone can comment on it saying, do we want a hobbled Board of Immigration Appeals? When we focused on that story, 6 people commented on it on the Federal Register. They didn't like it, but most people didn't notice it. So we're drawing attention to it. One day after publication, 121 people have commented on it. So right now, it's a shift in my focus. I'm still the court and legal reporter I've always been. But like the great folks on the Midas Touch Network, we're focusing on what people can do in this kind of emergency era that we're in this era of an attack on our democracy and these authoritarian efforts.
So we should work on that a lot together as well, because, I'm sure with the subscribers we have here, they would all to comment on these things. And I bet you we can get those comments up from 120 to tens of thousands of comments right away. And so let us know how we activate everybody here. Lots of comments of people wanting to know how they can follow you. You have the All Rise News right here on Substack, and you can subscribe right here, right now, as we're talking about this. Everyone can subscribe right there, or you can just search All Rise. Adam Clasfeld is on all social media platforms. You could follow him across the socials by looking up Adam's name. And Adam and I and the Midas Touch Network will be working together on a lot more things like this, because to me, these are the types of discussions, very data driven. We packed a lot of things into this 30 minutes. And, to me, that's where the media needs to head. And as independent media leaders, we can program these things the way corporate news would never allow us to. So to just get into the facts and talk about all these things. Anything else you want to say, Adam, before we sign off?
I wanted to thank you, Ben, for having me on. It's been, we've been talking to each other for a long time. Really respect your work, and I've always been very grateful for your support. And this has been. I'm looking forward to all the stuff we've got to talk about ahead. I think there's a lot to explore, not only in the world of law and the defense of the rule of law, but also what people can do about it.
And then Clasfeld, the founder of All Rise News. Thank you, Midas Mighty, for tuning in. I hope you learned a lot about the status of a lot of these cases. Make sure you subscribe to the Midas Touch Substack as well. Tell your friends, family members, coworkers, anybody you know about what we're building here. The Midas Mighty community is undefeated. I'm going to get ready for my show, Political Beatdown, coming up in 30 minutes. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.